All right, I want you to close your eyes. I want you to imagine a watch that is stainless steel, 40 millimeters, with a 46 millimeter lug to lug, so not too long. It's got a ceramic bezel insert with a bi-directional bezel because it has a true GMT function, so an independently set hour hand. It has 20 millimeter lug width, so you can match it with all your straps. It has 300 meters of water resistance, so you don't have to worry about wherever the heck you're gonna dive, because you're gonna die before you actually reach the bottom and break the watch. It has a loomed crown, not just a loomed bezel and loomed hands and loomed indices, but also a loomed crown. And it has a steel bracelet with a solid milled clasp, and also a quick on-the-fly sizing adjustment, much like Rolex's Glide Lock. Now, the question is, how much does that watch cost? What you're picturing in your head right now. Because if you list off those specs, most people, especially if you're going to consider some of the options from this company that have meteorite dials, you're talking several $1,000s for most people, because specs are usually a decent indicator of price. Now, that is not the case with Zelos. So Zelos has been known for a while. They're out of Singapore. They've been doing their thing for a while, and this is the first time they've reached out to me to do a review. They said they would send me this watch. I don't have to send it back, and I really wanted to get hands-on because I wanted to understand. I've heard about them and I've seen the reviews for so long. What is it that makes these special, aside from obviously the fact that they jam a buttload of specs into the watch? But does it feel as refined as you might expect given the list of specs on a sheet? Yes and no, but I'll go through that. I've already highlighted the mainline specs. You've got basically a dive watch that's been converted into a GMT watch. So 300 meters of water resistance, 40 millimeter case. Now the bi-directional bezel, in addition to a true GMT function, is certainly something you don't see all that often. There used to be a time where finding a true GMT function under $1,000 was never gonna happen. But thanks to the Miyota 9075, it seems to be popping up all over the place now. Everyone's got a true GMT watch that's coming out, but they're all basically around the same price point. That being said, they don't all have the same specs of this watch. Now, the on-the-fly adjustment is certainly one of those features that I didn't really expect. One of the things I also didn't mention when I was talking about it was a textured dial. Now, this isn't going to be Grand Seiko level finishing. It isn't going to be a textured dial that really just stops you in your tracks, but it's certainly something that's there that I wouldn't have really otherwise considered. And something Zelos has always been known for is not necessarily the fact that all their specs are in there, which they're known for that, but they're also known for their really wild designs. They play with color a lot, they play with different dial textures a lot. They really don't seem to care very often if they do something that may not be as popular. A lot of whites, a lot of blues, a lot of reds, a lot of greens, a lot of oranges. They'll throw any color basically on a dial, as long as it looks pretty good. And this is one of those, I think, that looks pretty good. This is a light blue Arctic dial. You've got a darker blue chapter ring on the outside, and then you go back to lighter, almost a grayish style color here with the ceramic bezel insert. As I said, bi-directional there, sapphire crystal. You've got a solid case back here, and then again, you've got your bracelet here with your on-the-fly adjustment. Now, one of the other things that's really nice here is you've got quick release spring bars built into the bracelet. So I typically can't just take a bracelet and unhook it and rehook it that easily. I mean, I can watch this. Boom, watch, no bracelet. That is something you don't typically get. Now, a lot of affordable watches have been doing it. The problem is a lot of the other ones, when they do a quick adjust like that or quick release spring bars, they leave the pins of these spring bars really tall on a lot of these other brands. These guys, I don't know if they designed where the pinholes were based on the height of these little pins for the quick release, or if they sourced quick release spring bars that had shorter rods to actually use for the quick release. But most of them, they're really long, and so they kind of like, I don't know, they look like crap. They look like they would dig into my wrist. I felt them only a couple times, but mainly it just looks unrefined. This, I think, is just right. Like, they're pronounced enough to the point where you can reach them, but they're not pronounced enough to the point where it starts to look a little cheap. Really well done with that. Obviously, solid end links, solid links. I mean, each of these links, if you look at it, you can see the hole drilled out through a solid piece of stainless steel. I mean, there's no, obviously it's not folded. So when we say solid links, that's what we mean. It's not gonna be hollow in the center. So solid links, oyster style, they've got a bevel on one side here. So each of these sides has a bevel on the top that's polished, but then it goes back to brushed on the top of that. And then the mid link is also brushed as well. So just like little touches, I mean, on the case itself, you've got the chamfer that runs the side. It's not overly refined, but it's kind of cool that it's there. You even have that chamfer kind of trace up through the case next to the crown. Again, I don't know if you can see that, but that chamfer kind of traces up. You can see how it dips down next to the crown there, which is really interesting and definitely something that I think is different, but it allows you to get access to that crown. And obviously on the back there, you've got a sandblasted figure. You say, sure, Harrison, it's got a lot of specs, but there's gotta be things that are not great. There's gotta be things that are annoying. Okay, so the watch is, first off, $730. So if you're out there and you're like, you know what, I want all the specs in the world, but I wanna spend less than $500, well then you're not gonna find it. If you say, I want all the specs in the world, but I wanna spend $750 on them, and I want it to feel as refined as a Rolex or an Omega, like, okay, again, you're unrealistic. These things aren't gonna happen. There will be things, obviously, that are a little less refined about a watch like this. But that being said, they're minor. And I think this also has to do with the fact that the target audience for this are gonna be spec-focused watch enthusiasts, and they're also gonna be less interested in refinement points because they want the tool aspect of it. They want it to serve a purpose. They want it to be able to be a true GMT that also can go underwater, and they don't need all that fancy refinement stuff. So they know their target audience, and I think they're hitting it quite well. The few things that are a little cut corners on, I guess, in order to probably not spend an inordinate amount of money in order to make it super refined, would be on the case itself. On the bracelet, the only one that I would say, the quick adjust is a little gritty at points, but it's not like, I mean, come on. I don't know if they're violating any patents by using a quick release that's so similar to Rolex's, but obviously they're doing it, so I suppose that's fine. The screwed links are great. The solid end links are great. The links themselves are flexible and nice. They're heavy. So if that's a preference thing, some people don't like really heavy bracelets. I'm one of those people, so it is a little heavy, but that's fine. The embossed logo here, this is where you start to see some of those refinements that, like, if it was a higher end watch, they would have come back through here and they would have beveled the harsher edges next to the outline here of this Z. This area right here, that's a little sharp. Not sharp, you're gonna cut yourself, but sharp as in not super refined, I suppose. Again, $730. Manage your expectations a little bit. If we move to the case, you're gonna see similar sorts of things. On the case back here, you're gonna have a little roughness around the bead blasted finish here and around the figure itself. Not a huge amount, but a little bit. On the crown and on the bezel is where you start to get a little bit more. You'll see here on the macro shot of this bezel, it's just slits basically cut into the bezel itself, which is great. I mean, it works. It's probably gonna be laser cut if I had to guess, but they're not gonna come back through and actually bevel each of those hits with the laser in order to make sure that it's smooth around, but still grippy. There is a way to toe that line. It's a relatively fine line, but that costs money. Same sort of thing would be found on the actual crown itself. So the crowns are typically going to be probably CNC'd, milled basically, where they have points, and that allows you to turn it. But even those points are beveled a little bit so they're not too sharp. This one has the same sort of cutout. Again, I'm imagining it's laser cutout here on the crown, and that allows the crown to work. It gives it, because of the negative space, it gives it a little bit of grip. But the downside with that is going to be the fact that it will be, again, a little bit sharp. But these small things, these small lacks of refinement are just basically due to cost. If you're in their customer base, you want the best value possible. And that means you're not only getting a great watch, you're getting a fantastic bracelet with a micro adjust built in. Obviously Spec Monster on the watch itself. You're getting a 3-watch travel case that comes with a watch that some people, I could name names, but there are several companies out there that have asked me to do endorsements or reviews or sponsorships that are like $200 or $150 for a watch roll. So a watch roll that's thrown in with the watch and a nice little added refinement of this steel warranty card. Again, unnecessary, but cool. So if they put on here, they put the serial number, the date, 1 year limited warranty, and the seller, they wrote Zelos. It's very steampunk. It's crazy. It's a crazy warranty card. It's not a card, it's a plaque. Cool. I mean, weird, steampunky, interesting, different, textured dial, features out the wazoo, overbuilt. That is Zelos. And they, I think, nailed it again with this GMT. For the overall watch industry, what I love the most about it is I think it's gonna push a lot of people to offer things like this at the affordable end. And that's what I love Zelos for. If you're not interested in their styles, that's fine. You should still look at them because I think they're doing great things. But if you're not interested in that, then you should also just be thankful that they're gonna push a lot of other affordable brands to start doing things like this bracelet here or some of the other added features they have on this case, because they'll see that people actually want it and buy it. So that's pretty much it. Those are my thoughts on the Zelos Mako GMT. If you guys have any thoughts, leave them down below. What do you think of Zelos in general or this specific model? And I'll see you in the next one. Take care.